Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from your UPSC perspective. Now today let us discuss some of the important articles which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 7th December 2020. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our examination perspective.
Dear students, Rao's IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 is a complete testing and revision course for the upcoming prelims examination. The program will help you prepare for UPSC prelims through a step-up approach. It is a meticulously designed study plan to organize your preparation and keep you on track towards covering the prelims GS and CSAT syllabus extensively from NCERT to the advanced level. The goal of our Prelims Test Series 2021 program is to exhaustively cover all standard sources of study material, including NCERT, with a study plan to test you at par with UPSC level of questions, thereby improving your chances of clearing the prelims examination. To give multiple revision of the entire syllabus from the perspective of civil service prelims pattern, the test series program will also give you the final revision of all topics and themes before the examination through QIP videos and prelims compass notes. The QIP videos or Quality Improvement Program videos are for speedy revision of all important topics for the upcoming prelims examination. QIP videos are kind of crash course for the prelims examination. And prelims compass are 8 subject-wise prelims compilation of all static and current affair topics important for the upcoming prelims. Rao's IAS Prelims Test Series 2021 will include topics test, testing the concept of candidate. It will include thematic test on both the concept and the current affair of that particular theme. It will also include current affair tests covering the monthly current affairs. And there will be full-length test before the final exam to simulate you for the D-Day. There is a link in the description of this video. You can click on the link for registration and to also check out the demo QIP videos.
The first news to be discussed appears as an editorial on page number 6. It says, Culture and Peace. India's stand against United Nations selectivity on religions gains force from its secularism. Now this editorial basically discusses about India's backlash with respect to stand taken by United Nations Alliance of Civilizations on the culture of peace. Now India has criticized the United Nations General Assembly in selecting to protect Abrahamic religions, namely Islam, Christianity and Judaism, and at the same time leaving out other religions. So basically India has criticized United Nations of discrimination. So basically India has criticized United Nations of discrimination in terms of only selecting to protect Abrahamic religions as compared to other religions, namely Hinduism, Sikhs, Buddhists as well as Jains, especially that these religions forms the minority religion in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So basically the government of India has accused the United Nations of discrimination as well as going against equality, and this is based on India's secularism as enshrined in the Indian Constitution, especially under Article 25 as well as 26 of the Indian Constitution. Now there are two particular reasons for the backlash of government of India at the United Nations. Number one is Pakistan's resolution at United Nations against Islamophobia, and second is the press statement by spokesperson of UNAOC, that is UN Alliance of Civilizations, on sectarian violence against Muslims in New Delhi, and also a mention of huge protests which took place in India against Citizenship Amendment Act. Now Pakistan's resolution was especially with respect to promotion of inter-religious and inter-cultural dialogue, understanding and cooperation for peace. And this was in Pakistan's effort to raise awareness about Islamophobia and countering defamation of sacred religious personalities and symbols. Now, here you must understand the term Islamophobia, as related questions can be asked, especially in GS paper 3 with respect to security. So, Islamophobia basically refers to exaggerated fear and hatred as well as hostility towards Islam, which overall results in perpetuated negative stereotypes, resulting in bias, discrimination, and marginalization and exclusion of Muslims from social, political, and economic aspects of life, or social, political, and economic activity. However, Government of India countered the resolution of Pakistan and said that such resolution is taken keeping Kashmir in mind. Further, the Government of India asked United Nations not to politicize any particular religion, as it will weaken India's counter-terrorism efforts and it will also support thereby increase cross-border terrorism, especially in India. Further, India guarded United Nations against taking sides based on religion, as according to the Government of India, this might lead to clash of civilization, based on the book written by Samuel P. Huntington. Further, the Government of India also said that United Nations must also focus attacks on Hinduism, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, and Christians in Pakistan as well as Afghanistan, and also accused Pakistan's culture of hatred against religions of India. And overall, Government of India stated that culture of peace cannot exist unless Pakistan keeps on supporting cross-border terrorism against India. Now, this resolution of Pakistan was co-sponsored by Pakistan and Philippines, and among the P5 nations, it was voted in favor by Russia as well as China, whereas the remaining P5 members abstained from voting. So basically, both Russia as well as China voted in favor of Pakistan, and we can say that they voted against India. So from this discussion, we understand that there are three important aspects which becomes important from our UPSC mains examination perspective. Number one is with respect to the aspect of secularism, as number of question has been asked by UPSC with respect to the concept of secularism as practiced in India as compared to the concept of secularism as practiced in the West. So here the fact is that based on the Indian version of secularism, which treats all religion equally, the Government of India has criticized in selecting to protect only Abrahamic religions, leaving out other religions, namely Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jain. So this aspect of secularism has been highlighted through India's backlash at United Nations. Now the second aspect which becomes important from our examination perspective is with respect to growing support for Pakistan, especially by Russia, since India and Russia maintains a very close and friendly relations among each other. So on this note, approval of this resolution of Pakistan and Philippines, especially by Russia, becomes a cause of concern for Government of India. And the third point which becomes important from the exam perspective is with respect to United Nations Alliance of Civilizations on Culture of Peace. So on this note, let us discuss these important aspects with respect to this particular editorial, as these three important aspects can be asked as a form of question in UPSC mains examination. Now generally when we talk about secularism, we simply mean that equality for all religions or the freedom for citizens to practice any religion of their choice without any state control or without any state intervention. So when we talk about secularism, there are certain aspects which becomes important. For example, freedom to practice any religion of choice, state treating all religion equally without discrimination, no domination of any single religion with respect to political, social or economic aspects of life, state not interfering in religious practice or choice of citizens. Further, there should be no religious persecution of minorities in any given country, and state should not have any formal or legal alliance with any religion. So these can be said to be an aspect of secularism. Now the question here is that is the secularism practiced in India any different from that practiced in the Western world, including United States of America? Now this question becomes important because of the fact that India has criticized United Nations in selecting to protect only Abrahamic religions, leaving out other religions. So overall, there is an issue of discrimination as highlighted by Government of India at the United Nations General Assembly. So the Indian aspect of secularism is deep rooted within these provisions of the Indian Constitution, namely equality, that is, all religions shall be treated equally. There shall not be any discrimination based on any religion as described in Article 15. Now, Article 21 calls for right to life and personal liberty without any discrimination, and Article 25 and 26 provides for freedom of religion as a part of fundamental right. So all these aspects becomes important to understand the Indian version of secularism. Now here another point to be understood is that the provisions of Constitution of India, especially with respect to equality, against discrimination, and with respect to freedom of conscience, free profession, practice and propagation of religion, is in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, mainly with respect to Article 2, which talks about the fact that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Similarly, Article 7 of UDHR mentions that all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law, something as similar to Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. And Article 2 of UDHR is almost similar to Article 15 of the Indian Constitution. And Article 18 of UDHR is almost similar to Article 25 as well as 26 of the Indian Constitution, as Article 18 of UDHR says that everyone has a right to freedom of thought, conscience as well as religion. And it is here where Article 25 and 26 with respect to Indian Constitution becomes extremely important to understand the Indian context of secularism. Now, it talks about the fact that there is freedom of conscience and free profession, practice, and propagation of religion. So, three aspects are highlighted here. However, the article starts with the fact that subject to public order, morality, and health, and to other provisions of this part, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion. So, we understand that this aspect of freedom of conscience and free profession, practice, and propagation of religion is subject to public order, morality, as well as health. So, a state can regulate certain aspects of religion based on public order, morality, as well as health. And similar provisions has been provided in Article 26, which mentions about freedom to manage religious affairs. It again says that subject to public order, morality, as well as health, every religious denomination or any section of it shall have the right for the following. These rights are with respect to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes, to manage its own affairs in matters of religion, to own and acquire movable and immovable property, and to administer such property in accordance with law. However, again, the state can regulate these aspects provided in Article 26 with respect to public order, morality, as well as health. Now, in this context, let us understand the Western concept of secularism. Now, with respect to Western concept, which is also practiced in the United States or also referred as the American model, it refers to mutual exclusion of religion and state. So, the activities and jurisdiction of religion and state are totally different and they do not interfere into each other's business. So, as per the Western concept of secularism, state and religion will not intervene in each other's activity or business. Both state and religion will have independent spheres of activity and jurisdiction. Policy of a state cannot have religious rationale. Religious classification cannot be the basis of any public policy. State cannot aid any religious institutions. State cannot provide financial support to educational institutions run by religious groups. And such a concept has no place for state supported religious reform. Now, this editorial highlights that India's stand taken against UNAOC with respect to protecting only selective religions can go against the very fact with respect to certain states in India carrying out anti-conversion law, Citizenship Amendment Act, which specially leave out Muslims from certain countries, and also with respect to Delhi riots where number of Muslims have died. Now, these aspects were highlighted by the press statement by spokespersons of United Nations Alliance of Civilization. And based on the statement, Pakistan passed its own resolution at United Nations, duly supported by Russia. So it is in this regard this editorial mentions that yes, India have a right to criticize the United Nations by not treating all religions equally or only by singling out these three Abrahamic religions. However, at the same time, this editorial also mentions that the statement by spokesperson of UNAOC might act against India's interest, passing anti-conversion laws which also in a way violate right to privacy as decided by the Constitution Bench of Supreme Court of India, and also with respect to the huge protest against Citizenship Amendment Act as it specifically left out Muslims. Now, this strong statement by Government of India is also important, especially with respect to the fact that Pakistan is trying to create a religious controversy against India at the World Forum. Thus, this backlash by the Government of India against United Nations Alliance of Civilization on the culture of peace is an important message to treat all religions equally without any discrimination. Now, the second aspect of the discussion is the growing closeness between Russia and Pakistan. Now, this collaboration grew in the wake of announcement of US withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2016. And Russia in particularly is interested in Afghanistan because of its impact on security on the broader Central Asian region because of its border. So in this backdrop, Russia considers Pakistan as an important player in dealing with evolving situation in Afghanistan, and inclusion of Pakistan in SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and also finalization of a roadmap for SCO Afghanistan contact group also gives Russia and Pakistan another avenue for increased cooperation. Another area which enhanced Russia-Pakistan closeness was freezing of military assistance from United States, especially during the Trump administration. And this made Pakistan rely more on Russia for aid along with China. Further, since 2016, military deals between Russia and Pakistan have become an annual exercise, and a naval cooperation agreement has also been signed in 2018. Now, another aspect is that the Russia-Pakistan Joint Working Group on Counter-Terrorism and other challenges to international security has again been revived in 2014. Now, this is important because since its inception in 2002, it only held 4 rounds of meetings till 2019. But now this Russia-Pakistan Joint Working Group on Counter-Terrorism and other challenges to international security has been revived post-2014. So these international instances highlights the growing relationship between Russia and Pakistan. And definitely this is a concern for India. And this is definitely a concern for India. And this concern is also in the backdrop of growing India-US ties. Further, willingness of Russia to engage Pakistan and support Pakistan at international platform is with respect to two perspectives. Number one, to look after Russia's immediate interest in Afghanistan and Central Asia, and second, to signal India its displeasure over its growing ties with United States. Further, growing closeness of Russia and China has also complicated the dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region, and a growing Russia-Pakistan-China axis will also be detrimental or damaging for India. So these can be said to be some of the concerns with respect to India regarding a growing closeness between Russia and Pakistan. Now, regarding a 10 or 15 marker question, if it is asked by UPSC on UNAOC, then you can highlight the following aspects. The fact that United Nations Alliance of Civilization was established in 2005 as the political initiative of Mr. Kofi Annan, who was the former UN Secretary General. And this initiative was also co-sponsored by governments of Spain as well as Turkey. So this initiative was started in 2005 and it was co-sponsored by the governments of Spain as well as Turkey. Further, Mr. Kofi Annan formed a high-level group of experts to explore roots of polarization between societies and cultures which exist today. So in this regard, we must understand the meaning of the term polarization. And he also recommended a practical program of action to address this issue of polarization between societies and cultures. Now, polarization refers to division of a society into two sharply contrasting groups having different opinions and beliefs. So basically, polarization refers to separation of a society into two contrasting groups having contrasting or opposite opinions, or a very different set of opinions from one and another. Now, in January 2019, Mr. Miguel Angel Moratinos assumed the position of High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. Further, the UNAOC functions through the Secretariat, which is based in New York. It also highlights that the alliance maintains a global network of partners, including states, international and regional organizations, civil society groups, foundations, and also the private sector to improve cross cultural relations between diverse nations and communities. Now, another important aspect highlighted here is that, as per the 2006 report, the high level group identified four priority areas for action, namely education, youth, migration, as well as media. Further, in 2019, the High Representative Mr. Moratinos announced that he intended to propose adding women as peace mediators as an additional pillar of UNAOC. So, all these can be said to be some of the important highlights about the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. So, overall, UNAOC can be said to be a premier global platform for intercultural dialogue, understanding, and cooperation among member states. So, we have discussed all the three important aspects highlighted in this particular editorial, which becomes important from our mains examination perspective. So, this editorial becomes important both from the perspective of GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 1, as the aspect of secularism gets covered under GS paper 1 and the aspect of international relations gets covered under GS paper 2. So, with this, let's move to the next topic of discussion. Now, the next news to be discussed appears as an article on page number 6. It says, a mirage sold as panacea for the unorganized sector. The labor codes will only better India's ease of doing business ranking instead of improving conditions of employment. Now, this article overall highlights certain problems with respect to the labor codes. Now, these codes mandate the benefits of employee state insurance scheme and provident fund scheme only for workers belonging to establishments employing 10 workers or more. So, according to this article, this aspect leaves out nearly 80% of employees from the informal sector with respect to employee state insurance as well as provident fund benefits. Now, in future, these 80% of the employees may be allowed access to ESI hospitals with respect to payment of certain usage charges. So, it is in this regard that if this 80% of the employees are allowed access to ESI hospitals, that is, hospitals under the employee state insurance scheme, then there is a need to increase number of doctors as well as paramedical staff. Now, this is because, as per the data of 2016, under the employee state insurance scheme covered 2.1 crore workers. And for these 2.1 crore workers or beneficiaries, ESI hospitals employed 6 doctors per lakh beneficiaries. However, the mandate as per WHO is 100 doctors per 1 lakh beneficiary. So clearly we understand that the ESI hospitals are underutilized. Now let us check this fact for the year 2019. This beneficiary number increased from 2.1 crore per workers to 3.6 crore workers. Now this further reduced the number of doctor per lakh beneficiaries. And clearly it would have fallen below 6 doctors per lakh beneficiary. Now once the labor code is implemented, it will add another 20% of beneficiaries from the informal sector, and this would roughly increase the number of beneficiaries under employee state insurance scheme from 3.6 crores to around 10 crores, that is a 3-time increase. So the issue is that the government need to increase number of doctors as well as paramedical staff in the ESI hospitals, and it is in this regard the government will need more resources. Now regarding resources, this article highlights that ESI has reduced the employer plus employee contribution from an earlier 6.5% to the present of 4%. So the point is, if number of beneficiaries is going to increase threefold, how will the ESI hospital cater to these beneficiaries? The second aspect highlighted is that with decreased contribution from employers and employee under the state insurance scheme, this overall will put tremendous strain on government resources, at the same time increasing the number of beneficiaries under the ESI scheme. Now, the ESI scheme or the Employee State Insurance Scheme is an integrated measure of social insurance embodied in the Employee State Insurance Act, and this is designed to protect the employees as defined under Employee State Insurance Act with respect to the impact of sickness, maternity, disablement, and also death due to employment injury, and also to provide medical care to insured persons and their families. Now, the ESI scheme applies to factories and other establishments, namely road transport, hotels, restaurants, cinemas, newspapers, shop, educational or medical institutions, where 10 or more persons are employed. The next aspect highlighted in the article is that government also did away with certain existing cess-based welfare schemes. For example, Beery Workers Welfare Board covering 5 lakh home-based women workers. Now, some of the benefits associated with these cess-based welfare schemes includes educational benefits for children and also benefits with respect to hospitals. So, this article highlights that with coming into effect of the four labor codes, workers of cess-based welfare schemes may have to forego these certain benefits in exchange of an undefined promise of universal social security. Now, another issue highlighted in this article is with respect to the concept of national floor level minimum wage. Now, the idea here is that whatever minimum wage a state government or a central government fix must be higher than this national floor level minimum wage. And here, different wages may be set for different geographical locations or for different areas. So, the problem highlighted in this article is that Center has decided to fix this national floor level minimum wage at rupees 202 per day. Now, this amount is very less as compared to the amount suggested by an expert committee appointed by Ministry of Labour, which recommended the national floor level minimum wage to be rupees 375 per day. So, comparatively, rupees 202 per day as fixed by the government is extremely less. Another point highlighted here is that floor wage is lower than poverty line family expenditure estimated by Rangarajan Committee of 2011. So it is in this regard this article suggests that the government must increase national floor level minimum wage. So these are the various problems highlighted in this particular article with respect to coming into effect of labor codes. Now this topic becomes important primarily from the perspective of our mains examination, from the perspective of GS paper 3 under Indian economy and GS paper 2 with respect to welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by center and states. Now, to cover this particular topic in detail, especially with respect to labor laws in India, problems and challenges, you can go through the DNS of 22nd September 2020 covered by Baswa sir. Here, as you can see, various aspects with respect to problem and challenges regarding labor laws in India has been discussed. So kindly go through this particular DNS dated 22nd September 2020 for a comprehensive understanding of all the problems and challenges facing the Indian labor laws, including the four labor codes. So with this analysis, let's move on to the next news discussion. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 1. It says, Meghalaya village turns an oasis in coal mine desert. Mulamiliang reforms after NGT ban. Now, this article talks about the hazardous impact of rat hole mining. Now, rat hole mining refers to digging up of very small tunnels, as you can see in these pictures, which is roughly around 4 to 5 feet wide, to extract coal. Now, in most of these rat hole mining, children are employed so that they can easily extract coal. Now, the problem with respect to rat hole mining is that it is extremely hazardous for health, especially that of children. And it is in this aspect, National Green Tribunal has banned rat hole mining in 2014 on grounds of being unscientific as well as unsafe. Now, since these tunnels are very small, so maximum children are employed to extract coal from these very small tunnels referred as rat hole mining. So it is in this regard we can say that rat hole mining is not only extremely hazardous for health but also employs children. And these can be said to be some of the problems with respect to rat hole mining in any given area. Further, it contaminates farmland. It also contaminates water bodies as water bodies becomes acidic, and it is also harmful for the rich biodiversity of the region. So these can be said to be some of the problems with respect to rat hole mining. Now this article highlights that by sustained effort in the village in East Jantia Hills in Meghalaya, The problem of rat hole mining has been overcome by planting more trees and by cleaning such rat holes. Now, rat hole mining is very much prevalent in the state of Meghalaya, as Meghalaya has a total coal reserve of 640 million tons, and most of these coal reserves are unscientifically mined by individuals and mostly by children through rat hole mining. Now, another problem with respect to mining of coal in Meghalaya is that the coal seam is extremely thin, and no other proper method would be economically viable to extract coal which is extremely thin. So, considering the thin coal seam, rat mining is normally preferred in Meghalaya. Now, some of the impacts of rat hole mining can be the water sources of many rivers, especially in the Jaintia Hill districts, have turned acidic. Further, it says that the water has also high concentration of sulfates, iron, as well as toxic heavy metals, and also low dissolved oxygen and high biological oxygen demand, showing its degraded quality. Now, high biological oxygen demand in a water body reflects increased pollution in such water bodies, as increased pollution is basically with respect to increased breaking down of organic matter by bacteria. And by doing so, the bacteria consume more oxygen of the water. So, more pollution in a water body will result in the bacteria consuming more oxygen to break down the organic matter, and this results in depletion of oxygen in the water body, affecting marine life. So, we can say that if a water body has high BOD, then definitely it will have low amount of oxygen. Now, in a clean water body, generally the biological oxygen demand is 5 parts per million, whereas in a polluted water body, biological oxygen demand increases to 17 parts per million. So, in a polluted water, demand for oxygen increases because of increased bacterial activity, which breaks down organic matter. Another impact of rat hole mining is that it says that the roadside dumping of coal is a major source of air, water, and soil pollution. So, rat hole mining leads to air, water, as well as soil pollution. Further, movement of trucks as well as other vehicles in the area with respect to coal transportation also adds to the ecological and environmental damage of the area. And the mines branch into networks of horizontal channels which are at constant risk of caving or flooding the entire area. So, these can be said to be the impacts and problems with respect to rat hole mining. Thus, this article specially becomes important from the perspective of prelims examination for the section of environment as well as general science. Now, this particular question was asked in the prelims of 2017. The question was biological oxygen demand is a standard criteria for. Options were A. Measuring oxygen levels in blood, B. Computing oxygen levels in forest ecosystem, C. Pollution assay in aquatic ecosystems, and D. Assessing oxygen levels in high altitude regions. In this, the correct answer was C, that is pollution assay in aquatic ecosystems. So we understand that this article becomes important not only from the perspective of rat hole mining but also to understand the concept of biological oxygen demand. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 8. It says Hampi Chariot can't be touched. Archaeological Survey of India puts a barricade to protect the iconic structure. Now, in this particular article, you need to know about the Vijayanagara Empire as well as its architectures. So, the site of Hampi mainly comprises the remnants of Vijayanagara Empire of 14th to 16th century AD. This area is located around the Tungbhadra basin in central Karnataka in Bellary district. In 1986, Hampi was declared as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Now, both these aspects becomes important as a related question was asked by UPSC in the prelims of 2019. The question was, consider the following pairs. Options were Pandharpur, Chandrabhaga, Tiruchirappalli, Kaveri, Hampi, Malaprabha. So the question was, which of the pairs given above are correctly matched? Now here you must know that Hampi is situated along Tungbhadra river and not along the Malaprabha river. So if we strike out option 3, then this option, and this option goes out. So here the correct answer was A, that is 1 and 2 only. Now this article says that there are more than 1600 surviving remains of the Vijayanagara Empire, and this include forts, riverside features, royal and sacred complexes, temples, shrines, pillared halls, mandapas, memorial structures, gateways, defense checkposts. water structures, etc. Further, the Dravidian architecture flourished under the Vijayanagara Empire, and its ultimate form is characterized by their massive dimensions, cloistered enclosures, and lofty towers over the entrances encased by decorated pillars. Now, another important architecture is the Vithala temple, which is the most exquisitely ornate structure of the site, and this represents the culmination of Vijayanagar temple architecture. Now, this is a fully developed temple with associated buildings like the Kalyana Mandapa and Utsav Mandapa within a cloistered enclosure pierced with three entrance gopurams. Now, Kalyana Mandapas were halls used for marriage or other ceremonies, and Utsav Mandapa were the festival halls. Further, it also boasts of a Garuda shrine fashioned as a granite rath and a grand bazaar street. Now, this complex also has a large Pushkarini, that is step tank, with a Vasantotsava Mandapa, that is ceremonial pavilion at the center, wells, and a network of water channels. Further, most of the structures at Hampi are constructed from local granite, burnt bricks, as well as lime mortar. Further, the gopuras over the entrances and the sanctum have been constructed with stone and brick, and the roofs have been laid with heavy thick granite slabs covered with a waterproof course of brick jelly and lime mortar. Now, another important aspect highlighted here is that Vijayanagar architecture is also known for its adoption of elements of Indo-Islamic architecture in secular buildings like the Queen's Bath and the Elephant Stables, representing a highly evolved, multi-religious and multi-ethnic society. Thus, these information with respect to Vijayanagar Empire as well as its architecture becomes important primarily from the perspective of your history and culture in your prelims examination. Now, another important aspect which you must know from your examination perspective is the difference of architecture with respect to the Nagara temple and the Dravida temple. Now, as you can see in this picture, this is a Nagara temple having a Kalasha, Amlaka, and a Shikhar. Now, notice the difference with respect to the size of Shikhar between the Dravida temple as well as a Nagara temple. Now, these aspects becomes important because a question was asked by UPSC in 2012. The question was the Nagara, Dravida, and the Vesara are A. Three main racial groups of the Indian subcontinent, B. Three main linguistic divisions into which the languages of India can be classified, C. Three main styles of Indian temple architecture, and D. Three main musical gharanas prevalent in India. In this, the correct answer was C. That is, three main styles of Indian temple architecture. Now, here as you can see, now in the Dravida or South Indian temple, there is a Gopuram, a Mandapa, as well as a Garbhagriha. Whereas in the Nagara style of temple, we have a Pitha, a Garbhagriha, as well as a Shikhara. And on the top, we have a Kalasha and a Amlak. So these can be said to be the basic difference between the Nagara or the North Indian style of temple as well as the Dravida or the South Indian temple style. So based on today's discussion, this becomes your question for the day. So the question is, building Kalyana Mandapa was a notable feature in the temple construction in the kingdom of. Options were A. Chalukya, B. Chandela, C. Rashtrakuta, and D. Vijayanagara. And this was a question asked by UPSC in 2019. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was, consider the following statements. The Food Safety and Standards Act 2006 replaced the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act of 1954. Yes, this is correct. The FSSAI is under the charge of Director General of Health Services in the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. No, this is incorrect. So here the question was, which of the statements given above are correct? Here the correct answer becomes A. With this, we come to an end to today's discussion. Thank you.